And thank you so much for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Efrem Graham. Ahead today, freedom of speech under fire. That comes after a prominent U.S. judge was shouted down during a visit to California's Stanford Law School. We've got the details. Plus, statistics show only 1% of American missionaries are black. One movement is pushing to change that. We'll show you how the Black Voices movement is reaching, empowering, and equipping black millennials and Gen Zs with the gospel. Then later, hiking on the Holy Land can be challenging for the disabled, but now it's changing due to the Luke 5 Adventures Ministry.
I thought right away this was an answer to prayer. God orchestrated this. This opens the whole new door for really going anywhere.
All these stories and more coming up next from the CBN Newsroom.
This is CBN NewsWatch.
I want to begin this half hour with freedom of speech under fire after a prominent U.S. judge was shouted down during a visit to California's Stanford Law School. The fallout has some calling for the university to fire the college's associate deans after she participated in the student-led protest. Since then, even more backlash has amassed after the school's dean apologized to the U.S. judge. CBN's Brody Carter has more. It's our top story.
You've invited me to speak here, and I'm being heckled nonstop. And I'm just asking for an administrator to sign.
That's an administrator. Your racism is showing.
Invitation for Federal Circuit Court Judge Kyle Duncan to speak at Stanford University about COVID, Twitter, and guns instead ended up in a free-for-all.
Your advocacy, your opinions from the bench land as absolute disenfranchisement of their rights and does land. Let me.
One of the more surprising moments came as the law school's Associate Dean of Diversity and Inclusion joined in heckling the judge. Judge Duncan describes the incident as a bizarre therapy session from hell. While the judge and others have called for the Associate Dean's removal, both the law school's dean and the university president apologized, which led to another student protest, this time inside the law dean's classroom. Their message? Counter speech is free speech.
Now, of course, protesters are always able to peacefully protest other places on campus, but when you are in a speaking event, it's effectively a closed forum, and you cannot be shouting someone down and just saying, as the protesters here are doing, that it's just counter speech. It's censorship.
Alex Morley with Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression calls the incident concerning and worries about the future of free speech in America.
Free speech is not a right-wing value or a leftist value. It's not something that one side or another, one religion or another can claim. It's something that belongs to all of us and that we can use as a tool to work together to see the changes that we want to see in society, to advocate for them.
Prior to the judge's appearance, Associate Dean of DEI, Tyrion Steinbach, sent this email to Stanford students, which states Duncan has repeatedly threatened health care and marginalized minority communities. However, this threat to free speech on college campuses is not an isolated event. Last March, future attorneys at Yale disrupted a panel, ironically discussing a case on free speech, shouting down Alliance Defending Freedom CEO Kristen Wagner.
They were pounding on the walls, blocking the exits, and disrupting the event throughout. It was very unfortunate and alarming and volatile.
We want people to understand that free speech is something that can work for them, whatever their values are. My specialty on college campuses, we are working hard to get students, students on college campuses in many ways are some of our future leaders, and we want them to bring those values into society when they graduate.
Brody Carter, CBN News.
As Americans worry what's next for the country's banks, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen was on Capitol Hill Thursday to take some tough questions from lawmakers. Yellen attempting to ease fears and defend the Biden administration. Her testimony follows the second largest banking collapse in American history and a White House rescue for their depositors. Mal Galka has more.
I can reassure the members of the committee that our banking system is sound and that Americans can feel confident that their deposits will be there when they need them.
Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen tried to ease fears of a financial collapse. Her comments come after runs on Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank forced federal regulators to step in to protect deposits. Long-term bond investments that lost value crushed SVB.
And I attribute that to the interest rate hikes that we are seeing in the face of the inflation. Am I wrong in that?
Given the interest rate increases that have occurred since those assets, including treasuries and government-backed mortgage-backed securities, they had lost market value.
All right, yeah, and we're on the same page on that then. I appreciate that.
That bank's tech industry clients rushed to withdraw their money, sparking a run that the government tried to step in and stop. The move guaranteed customers money, even those holding above the FDIC-insured amount of $250,000.
Most of us have all seen It's a Wonderful Life. We realized that that money was off in small businesses and startup businesses around the country. Question I have is, who was playing the role of Mr. Potter?
If a bank has an overwhelming run that's spurred by social media or whatever, so that it's seeing deposits flee at that pace, a bank can be put at danger of failing.
Yellen defended the administration's efforts as senators pressed about the potential precedent being set by guaranteeing all deposits for the failed banks. Some worried other banks would see it as the new normal and a bailout.
We have a long and storied history of opposing nationalizing the banking system. Do you see this as a step to nationalize the banking system?
Absolutely not. I see this as a step toward stemming contagion that could come from the failure of these banks that would place community banks across the country at great risk of runs.
Matt Gelka, CBN News.
The banking fiasco dominated the hearing, which was supposed to be about the president's proposed budget. But Yellen did also mention inflation, saying it was the country's #1 economic problem right now. A federal judge pressed both sides in a hearing questioning FDA approval of an abortion drug. The Alliance Defending Freedom argues the drug, mifepristone, is unsafe and did not undergo proper vetting. In a 4-hour hearing, Judge Matthew Kaczmarek questioned whether the process to approve the drug rose to federal standards needed for approval. He also questioned whether a judge has the authority to withdraw that approval. Kaczmarek is a Christian known for his pro-life views, did not indicate how he might rule, but he did say he would make a decision as soon as possible. A life or death election. That's what pro-life organizations consider the battle for control of Wisconsin's Supreme Court. Right now, conservative judges hold a 1-seat majority that Democrats are trying to win, with major cases on abortion, political boundaries, and crime expected to make it to the state's high court. Caitlin Burke is on this story.
This is a high-stakes election. In other states, we've seen voters get the say on state issues like abortion. In Wisconsin, however, laws can't be overturned through ballot initiatives. Those decisions go to either the state legislature or the high court, and both have been in Republican control for over a decade.
On April 4th, voters will weigh in on the issues through their choice of a new state Supreme Court justice. Republican Daniel Kelly facing off against Democrat Janet Protasewicz.
This is going to be an election like no other.
There's too much at stake, way too much at stake for us to stop for even a moment.
As key cases appear headed to the state's high court, the outcome of this race could have implications on issues from redistricting and voting rights to deciding whether abortions will be permitted here. Since the primary campaigns began, groups on both sides have been pouring money into the contest. Now, the general election is expected to become the most expensive state Supreme Court race ever.
We invested 6 figures in the primary. That primarily went to voter outreach through calls, texts, mailers. We're going to have an even bigger investment this time around that we'll be announcing in the next few days.
As Susan B. Anthony, Pro-Life America, makes a major push for Kelly, Director of State Public Affairs, Kelsey Pritchard, says it's time for organizations like hers to take action.
We're at risk of having mini row decisions that nullify the laws on the books that save lives and protect the unborn. And so it's really crucial that we be engaged in these races going forward.
While Wisconsin Supreme Court candidates may take conservative or liberal positions, court seats are officially nonpartisan. Carrie Severino with JCN says the key for voters is to choose the candidate who will uphold the Constitution rather than legislate from the bench.
We see a real contrast there with one judge saying, I'm going to vote for change in Wisconsin, trying to change the abortion law, trying to change the state redistricting. Whereas Judge Kelly is committing to saying, no, we need to be looking at what the law says.
Also in jeopardy pending the outcome of this election, Republican laws enacted when they had full control of the state government. Laws like former Governor Scott Walker's signature legislation, known as Act 10, a measure eliminating collective bargaining abilities for most public employees.
Unfortunately, No Jail Janet and her allies have gone out and essentially she's making promises about what her values are, signaling to people they're going to get rid of our Act 10 reforms, they're going to get rid of prohibitions on abortion, protecting the sanctity of life.
Protasewicz has also signaled support for redrawing congressional boundary lines, a move Walker says could have national implications.
They could gerrymander in a way where at least one, maybe two of those House Republicans from Wisconsin could get bumped out of a seat. If they do that, again, in a tough election in 2024 where every member of the House is going to be up for election, that could affect who holds the majority in the future.
Both candidates are expecting record turnout for that April 4th general election. Caitlin Burke, CBN News.
Coming up, see the movement focused on reaching Black millennials and Gen Zs with the gospel. Stay with us. And welcome back to CBN NewsWatch. The Christian faith demands mission work, and we have shared numerous stories on mission fields, including revivals breaking out across college campuses this year. And here's one that may be new to you. It's called Black Voices Movement, and its goal is to reach, empower, and equip Black millennials and Gen Zs with the gospel. And it is an important work when you consider statistics show only 1% of American missionaries are Black. Yasmin Pierce of Black Voices Movement joins us now with more. So let's begin with this. What sparked this movement?
Yes, absolutely. That's a great question. So really, when it comes to working with young people need to hear and know that their voice is needed. And when we talk about Black Gen Z and we talk about Gen Z in general, we've seen in the past few years that all these other spheres of society are vying for young people's voice, vying for young people's attention. And really for us early on, God really burdened our hearts with this phrase, and it's "the King is calling." And it's really inspired by Matthew 9, where you see Jesus looking at the harvest, looking at people who want to be saved. And he turns to his followers and he says, the harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. So what really inspired us is this thing of saying, man, Black Gen Z's voice is needed in the harvest. And the King Jesus, is calling this demographic forward as evangelists, as preachers, and witnesses of who Jesus is.
So how do you connect with these young Black men and women?
Yeah, absolutely. So Black Voices as a movement, we tour and we do worship gatherings, we do evangelism trainings, practical leadership trainings. And what we find on these university campuses is a resounding response of, I didn't know that my life could be used to proclaim the gospel in this way. I didn't know that I could be an evangelist. I didn't know that my voice could be used in this way. We had a student at Clark who was saying, man, I feel like now that I'm doing this evangelism training, I'm seeing people get saved from me communicating the gospel for the first time. And she's saying, it's like these gifts are being awakened that I didn't know were there. So that's a lot of what we do, is helping to train, helping to empower young people for them to realize, wow, I'm a part of the solution of what God wants to do on the earth when it comes to reaching the lost.
Beautiful. Why is it so important to reach out and empower these young people?
Absolutely. Again, like I said, I just think so many different spheres of society are giving a lesser cause, a lesser purpose to the lives of young people. But as we look in the Bible, Jesus makes it so clear that when we seek first his kingdom, when we surrender our lives to him, we're going to be fulfilled in the greatest ways. And many young people, they just don't realize that. So as we go onto college campuses, what we're seeing is young people realizing, wow, I did not know that I, with my passions, with my gift sets, that I could live on fire for God, and that there are other young people like me. There are other people, even in my own demographic, who are living sold out for Jesus, who are seeing their friends get saved. And it's really a remarkable thing to see that awakening happen in people's hearts.
Beautiful. We've got less than a minute, but I want you to let us know. Tell us about the Black Voices Festival.
Absolutely. So this is going to be in Newark, New Jersey, and it's going to be the week of April 21st. So it's a whole week long of empowering the everyday believer, the person going to college, the person working the 9-to-5 job, in just this, being a voice for the gospel. And it will culminate on Friday the 21st in a music festival full of Black Voices music, other worship teams that we're collaborating with, and we're really excited for what God's going to do.
Before we let you go, how can people get involved?
Absolutely. Well, if you are Gen Z, so about 27 to teenage, we do have a whole 6-month training here in Huntington Beach, California. We'd love to invite you to come out to get trained. Otherwise, check out our website, blackvoicesmovement.com, and you can learn more there.
Oh, beautiful. Yasmin Pierce, thank you so much for your time. Blessing to talk to you today. Still ahead, making the impossible possible. They're walking in the footsteps of Jesus, even though they can't walk at all. See how one group is making the Holy Land accessible for those with disabilities. We got the story for you coming up next. Stay with us. Climbing steep hills, navigating rocky paths, and hiking in the Holy Land can be challenging. The tough terrain has made it nearly impossible for people with disabilities to enjoy all the sights that Israel has to offer. Well, now that's changing thanks to a ministry called Luke 5 Adventures. Paul Strand explains.
Israel's many things to many people, but one thing it's not really is all that accessible to people with disabilities. What with the rough ground, slippery rocks, big steep slopes. But there's a group right now working on making sure that the disabled can go anywhere in this land that anyone else can. Dr. John Delancey leads tours combining Israel's archaeology, history, and the Bible. But he couldn't include tourgoers with physical disabilities.
We offer multiple Israel trips a year, but no accessibility for people who can't walk.
Then Delancey discovered Luke 5 Adventures, a ministry grown to 9 U.S. chapters that help those with disabilities experience the rugged outdoors using Jolette chairs like this one.
We just completed our 800th hike in the last 3 years.
CBN News hit the trail with them in Ohio in 2021, and more recently, Israel, as they partnered with Delancey's ministry.
I thought right away this was an answer to prayer. God orchestrated this. This opens the whole new door for really going anywhere.
Delancey and Luke 5 Adventures tested that idea in Israel with Victoria Odom. She's fought her way back from traumatic brain injury and total paralysis.
I've relearned step by step.
Though not enough to tackle certain terrain.
I can never walk on slippery rocks or climb up trails.
For people like Victoria it's not even a dream to go from here over there, because it's not possible. But what we're doing makes the impossible possible.
Whitney Blackston came along to help Odom since Blackston had witnessed how Luke 5 Adventures helped transform the life of her daughter, Emerson.
She's completely blind and hearing impaired, nonverbal.
On hikes in the Jolette, Emerson came to know God's wonders in nature.
We could tell her what a tree is. She's blind. She really doesn't have a concept of what that is. But now she can get out there and feel the tree, and actually feel the leaf and the leaves and the wind in her face.
Or for the first time, touch water in the wild at a place Emerson revisited in fall of 2022.
And as I was telling her that Jesus is her rock, she said, "Jesus, I want." And so we baptized her that day.
Beginning their Israel tour, Blackston and the others aiding Odom came upon an immediate challenge.
That first day we stepped off and there's this steep, deep cavern that you couldn't even see the bottom. Victoria wanted to go, so we tackled it. Just to see that, I go, this is amazing, a God thing, and Victoria, wow.
she's experiencing exactly what we are.
Masada was a really nice challenge as well.
Masada, the steep mountain where Jewish rebels made their stand against Roman legions almost 2,000 years ago.
It's relentlessly uphill for a long time.
It's up probably 500 or 600 feet in elevation, and they conquered it just amazingly.
It was incredible and will go down as one of the most amazing memories.
Talk about the uniqueness of this ministry. I don't think any other type of wheelchair apparatus ever made it up the Roman ramp there at Masada.
Other days, the group raced Odom and the Jolette like a chariot in a place real chariots once raced. And they took her on a pre-dawn hike with headlamps.
It just opened everything. I was like, I can do this. Everyone can do this.
Don't dismiss your dreams.
Now Delancey's ready to make dreams come true for others.
To offer trips to Israel on a regular basis with this amazing one-wheel wheelchair.
His ministry hopes to buy at least one Jolette and keep it in Israel for his tours and others. And he's already planning another trip with the help of Luke 5 Adventures for 2024. Schwieger, its founder, points out 99.99% of God's extraordinary creation is outside of where most severely disabled people can reach it.
And that's not acceptable.
Everyone should be able to do this.
And now they can get their chance. The bottom line of Victoria's adventure here in the Holy Land is never tell yourself, no matter what shape you're in, that something's impossible for you. Paul Strand, CBN News, reporting from Jerusalem.
For more from Jerusalem, be sure to catch Jerusalem Dateline tonight at 8:30 on the CBN News Channel. Stay with us. Your Friday Faithful is coming up next. Time now for your Friday Faithful, and today I leave you with this thought. Be careful what seeds you sow. They grow, and they grow as good fruit or weeds of frustration. So sow well and water what is just and good in the eyes of God. And in doing this, today will be a faith-filled Friday, and the future will be fruitful. That's going to do it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. Remember, you can always find more of our news programs on the CBN News Channel at any time, as well as online at cbnnews.com. We'd love to know what you think about the stories you've seen here today. You can email us at newswatch@cbn.com and reach out and touch us on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. Have a fabulous Friday. We'll see you back here Monday. Goodbye. God bless.